It's good to have you stay with us on the show, TMI, on the ITV network. Okay, access to information, especially if you get it when you need it most, just to ensure that you balance your reportage and you portray the issues the way they are supposed to be, is very key in any society that is serious about development, about the democracy, and about good governance. We have the Freedom of Information Act in Nigeria. To what extent can we leverage on this to impact democracy, good governance, and ensure that the people, the society, is well informed? Are there equivalencies towards the leveraging on that? These and more we'll be asking in the next couple of minutes, as we have with us in the studio the head of Department Mass Communication, University of Benin, Dr. Daniel Akaraifo. Dr. Dan, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. Give us the historical background on the Freedom of Information Act. How did it come to be? What were the forces, centripetal, centrifugal, that brought that law into being?
Well, the idea about the Freedom of Information Act started in the year 2000. One Ezuche Obani, a journalist, submitted that bill when he was a member of the House of Reps. When the bill was submitted to the National Assembly for consideration, initially in 2005, it was passed, but the then President, Olusegun Obasanjo, find certain portions of the bill to be inimical to the Nigeria state. So he resubmitted it to the Assembly, National Assembly for reconsideration. He rejected the bill. In summary, he refused to sign the bill. However, that leg of the National Assembly ended in 2007. And when they came on board again in 2007, it was resubmitted. Debate on it continued until 2011. May 28, 2011, the then acting president, Goodluck Jonathan, signed the bill into law.
Okay.
So you will say in the history of Nigeria, apart from the Petroleum Industry Act that appears to have a little level of competition with it, it is one of the oldest bills that took 11 good years before it was passed into law. So historically, it took 11 years.
11 years to come into existence.
Yes.
Well, what are the provisions of the Freedom of Information Act, and then who can leverage on it?
Well, the Act has certain aspects. One, individuals' right to access public information. There is an aspect that places a demand on information holders, the public office information holders, to release information to the would-be seeker. There are also exceptions to the type of information you cannot ask for, and the legal provisions in case you are denied right. Essentially, these are the four aspects.
How workable, feasible is this act? And to what extent would you say it has impacted on access to information?
Let's look at the reason for the act itself. The act came about as a result of agitations by members of the civil society group that our society, for a long time, we relied on the Official Secret Act as a basis to deny not journalists, even individuals who wanted public information. So there was a call for a rethink on our approach to public information. The idea was, if you have an open system where people can access public information, it will serve as a basis to measure some of the activities of government, their performance, and other issues that may likely come into play. That was the basis for this act. But as a society, we are afraid of being checked. Even the best of rulers. And sometimes when I look at what is happening in Nigeria, if we look at the current set of leadership, these are men and women who fought for democracy, so to say. But for many of them that took over power, there has been a deliberate attempt to deny public access to information stifle information, or even fight against those who tend to reveal certain secrets in government that are inimical to those in authorities. The aim was to make governance more open so that we can have a better society. But what you find now is that walls are erected. I'm aware that sometime last year, members of the civil society organization in the state here wrote to the state government requesting to know the level of implementation of that year's budget. But they were denied access because the government claimed that the Freedom of Information Act has not been domiciled in Edo State. The same thing came up with Lagos State. I think there are even litigations over that in Lagos. That of Edo, the then State Council told us in a meeting that they were in the process of domesticating the act. And we raised questions that it is not every national law that requires domestication. Okay. It's just like the EFCC Act. You don't need to domesticate it in the state before EFCC can take on you or raise questions.
Okay.
But the bottom line is that many governments are afraid of people looking into the book so that questions will not be asked. These are some of the barriers and roadblocks they have built to stop people from accessing public information.
Okay, let's look a little bit deeper into the positives in terms of what the Act will bring to bear on good governance, democracy, transparency, and accountability in government.
Okay. If we look at access to information, you collecting revenue from the public, about taxes from the public, you collect certain rates, whatever it is. The Act says if people want to know your level of collection, what you have used the money for, you should give them the privilege of accessing such information. And so if a government is transparent, you presented a budget to either the State House of Assembly or the National Assembly saying we're going to spend so billions or trillions in this fiscal year. This is November, and people want to know, maybe they wrote to the Ministry of Finance, what is the level of revenue generation? What is the expenditure profile of the government? If the government is sincere in serving the people, you lay the records bare. If people have such facts, certain questions about government not doing well, there are no revenue, necessary questions will be asked. Because for every revenue that comes in, whatever you spend the money on, the Information Act stipulates that you should be able to give the person the record. We collected ABC and we are spending it on ABC. That will provide the basis for questioning. Okay. So the Freedom of Information Act ought to give us a sense of accountability. The day before yesterday, when I was driving, certain questions came to my mind about the state of our roads. Does it bother you to say, for instance, Abuja-Benin Highway, every year there's a budget, a certain amount is allocated for the reconstruction of these roads. And we are not making progress after how many years? It is still the same issue every year. Yeah. So the question you ask yourself is, the budget or the allocation to these roads, were they not released? What was the quantum of release? The quality of work done on the roads, does it compare to what has been released? These are things the Freedom of Information Act seeks to interrogate. But unfortunately, I would say either the journalists themselves or NGOs who are into policing government are not doing their work in this regard. I know one or two cases that have been taken to court over the issue of denial. But overall, if we want to run a system that is more transparent, the Freedom of Information Act was provided as a basis to hold government accountable for the people. But like I said earlier, we have a system or a government that is not ready to change. So most of the issues you hear about governance, attitude to transparency, and all the rest is just media talk. Because if you don't have any secret in the cupboards and you lay the books bare and you allow people to scrutinize the books by questioning, we're going to have a system where the humongous amount you hear about corruption will no longer be there. If I will take you a little further, in the Scandinavian countries, you realize that the level of crime in those societies is a little low. Corruption is a little low. The simple reason is that they practice open governance. People have access to information, and government does not deny its citizens their right to information. And because the public is constantly aware of what is going on in government, when a bill is passed, when a civil legislation is passed, and it's to the detriment of the people, because of this access, people are able to raise questions. They're able to mobilize themselves against such legislation. And you now realize that the society, there is this symbiotic relationship between the citizens and those who on their behalf exercise political power. We don't find that here. What you find here is that you have an elite class who have captured the state and using the resources of the state to their own advantage, and nobody can question them. So check many of the government agencies that have websites where basic information. You will be surprised that on the website of a government agency, it is an event that happened in 2017 that will be on the top page of such a government agency. Whereas there are information officers there, there are county officers in these agencies and ministry. The man in charge will tell you that is not for public consumption. And because the man wants to keep his job, he cannot do otherwise. That is where we are.
You mentioned a while ago that agencies denying access to information, those seeking such information, the Act provides for such people to be prosecuted. Could you expatiate more on that?
Okay, what the Act stipulates is that if you need public information, you write to the agency that I need information about ABC. It is expected that that agency will within 3 days release the information to you.
3 days?
Within 3 days. Release the information to you. Even if that agency will deny you information, the Act also stipulates that within 3 days they should explain to you why they cannot give you that information. Now the Act further stipulates that if you are denied the right to access public information, you should approach the court to seek interpretation or to compel the court to compel that agency to release such information to you. It is not what is cast on iron. It's not what is difficult to do. The challenge is that in our system, our record keeping is very poor. And because we don't have proper record keeping, when you ask for such information, it will take months before they can package it together because records are not properly kept.
Yeah.
If you go to a typical government agency where the mafians rule the system, they circumvent the processes. For instance, if you apply for a certain amount of money and you are not going to be granted, within government agency, in their workings, you have the man who received your request. It is recorded. He passes it to either the audit department, the approving officer will sign, pass it to audit for verification and all the rest. You may be surprised that in many of these agencies, you'll be looking for a simple voucher or a request for payment. They will tell you they cannot find it. I also asked myself, in this age at times, you see many government agencies where papers is what will move from one level to another. When people talk about virtual office in our days, so what is wrong in government digitizing its processes so that as the file move from one office to another, it's just an electronic signature they need. When an approval is given, you print the final copy and keep as a backup file.
Okay.
But we don't do that here. So, like I said earlier, we don't have proper record keeping. So even when people make requests, they will tell you we don't have such information, we cannot give it. So this is the reason why you still have issues of this nature.
Would you say that politics and corruption are the topmost challenge in the workability of the Freedom of Information Act?
Yes. It's simply politics and corruption. Because there is a mindset among Nigerians that if you occupy a public office, family members, religious group, your ethnic group members will start pressurizing, this is our time. Let's do it this way, let's do it that way. And because people want to enrich themselves at all costs, we circumvent the process. So if you circumvent the process, people cannot have access to appropriate record. Does it bother you to find out why if a man takes over office, those he meets in the office will tell you, I cannot work with these people. He brings in his own set of workers because he wants people who are loyal to him or her, people who can keep secret for him or her. So politics is a basic issue, and the endemic corruption in our society is the reason why the Freedom of Information Act seems to be lame, even though it's a very powerful law that can make us a better society. Let's look at politics. A group of men seize power for their own advantage. And with this power, they recruit loyalists, men and women who can defend them at any time, any day. And so, from the very root of such an office to the very top, they have men who are ready to fight for the cause of the man in power. And if you have this type of system, and you make certain requests, they will tell you, okay, tomorrow, a file you submitted today, or a request you made today for something, in 3 days' time, they will tell you they cannot find it. It's very sad. That is the level of our wickedness as a people. I will share a little experience with you. A friend of mine needed to be paid in a public institution. He wrote a letter requesting for payment. The officer in charge, when he saw the request, it was in the millions. So he took that file and put it in the contractor's file. 1 year, we're going to the same office. They said they cannot find the file. Until another person came and said, he just got to that office that day and said, if you don't bring this file out today, we'll burn down this office. This office belongs to all of us. So the man in charge now asked him a question. I thought he's a contractor. He would have said he's just a normal civil servant. So he went to the contractor's file and brought the file out. That was the same file they pursued for 1 year.
That was nowhere to be found.
They said they were looking for it. He now brought the file out. Why did the man do that? Because if it's a contractor's file, you will need to settle before the file can go.
So that's the corruption.
That is the corruption aspect of it. So when you access information, for a long time that issue bothered me. I was asking myself, so does it mean that man did not show an element of thuggery? We will remain where we were. So it's a sad thing about our development. So the Freedom of Information Act is good, but our political system, the level of corruption, and our general attitude to work is very bad. Go to any government institution or public institution. People don't take anything serious. A friend of mine who worked in a bank, before he came into a public institution, he saw the general attitude. He said, well, even though there is freedom here, I don't like the way people work here. Everybody is giving an excuse
for not doing the job that
they are being paid for. And if government delays salary or that institution delays salary for a month, you see people abusing those in authorities. But the simple work they ask you to do, you will not do it. It's a challenge. So, in thinking about what type of society we want for ourselves, the earlier we start thinking about making the system work for the benefit of all, the better for us. Those who are older, who are leaving the system, they will say, well, I have managed the system, my tenure is over. You struggle and package it together, even in a skeletal form, and hand over to the next one. The next one will struggle to keep the skeleton. So once you have such a system, that is how successive leader will keep managing it. It is not in my tenure that this thing will happen. Once you continue like that, you are running a system that is already dead. You are just struggling to keep it alive. That is what we are doing as a nation.
Okay, yes, just anchor the point.
So, we need to really sit down and ask ourselves what type of society we want for ourselves. Is it a society that works for the benefit of all, or a clique of people who daily sit down, decide the fate of others and say if anything happens, we mobilize security personnel to stop them? For how long are we going to continue like this? It's a simple thing. A government budgets billions, and at the end of the year, he cannot give account of what was generated, what was spent, and for what purpose. People cannot ask questions like this. And we're talking about development. We cannot.
Okay. How does making the Freedom of Information Act ineffectual promote fake news? And what is the implication for the society?
Okay. That's a very good question. Why does fake news thrive? Why do people make accusations against government when it is obviously fake? The reason is that government itself is not providing the right quality of information necessary for societal transformation. My very senior professor, Ayedo Aluma, in one of the articles he wrote, he said what makes for an information society is about the information culture of such a society. And when you have the right information culture, information disclosure is a critical element of a society that has information culture. And that there are always sanctions for individuals who fail to disclose the right quality of information and quantity of information for the good of society. So the question is, the president is sick, assuming, and journalists want to know the state of the president's health. His spokesman will not say the president is sick. They say that is his private life. But the man chooses to serve people as a public figure, and you are saying we don't have a right to find out what is happening to him. So, because the spokesman is not ready to tell us the true state of things, people will try for a rumor. And once rumor thrives, fake news and misinformation will become the order of the day. If I take your mind back a little, when Yaradua was sick, you started hearing stories that the president is in a good state. He was climbing a 5-story building, but the man's health was deteriorating. I had expected that succeeding information managers of government will learn from that experience. The man eventually died. Yeah. Even the day they brought him, they switched off the lights at the airport so that people would not know that the dead body of the president had arrived in the country. Why? Those in the seat of power wanted to continue to manage power to the detriment of others. It tells you about our attitude. You fast forward to when Buhari came. The same incident played out. The president was not in the right state of mind. Instead of the information managers to say, the president is receiving treatment, this is his state. Or they say, the president cannot lose from anywhere. The president is okay. What was the result? Some say the president is dead. The president that is really is Jubril from El Sudan. You started hearing all those stories. Why? Those managing information did not disclose the right information to the public. What was the result? Rumors started spreading. As a matter of fact, I did a paper on information management, using that of Buhari's case. It took the visit of this current president, some principal officers of the National Assembly, then to London, before the issue of whether the president was dead was laid to rest. And I was asking myself, if the information managers knew the value of public disclosure, the level of rumor they are allowed to thrive would not have been if they had done the right thing. So my challenge to special advisors to government on information should understand that rumor mongering, fake news will continue to thrive if they are not doing their work. The job of an information manager is to manage public information in the most effective way, such that the integrity of the officer is protected and the citizens are well informed in such a way that people will not give room for a second opinion or doubt about the authenticity of the information released. Until we get to that level, misinformation will continue to be the order of the day because information managers are not doing their job well.
Talk to us a bit about the new media, social media, which seems to be a major competitor to traditional media, even though you have media convergence in terms of accessing information. Is this a challenge that we should be concerned about, or are there better ways we can leverage on this to ensure that people have access to authentic information, as it were?
The social media is a blessing to us. I think it's a good for deepening the democratic process. You'll recall that when President Muhammadu Buhari was in office, there was an attempt to bring in the cyber bill, which members of the civil society resisted, because there were provisions in that bill that deprive citizens about their right to express their views about what is happening in government. That was because those in government are in the habit of keeping secrets. And the only way citizens can challenge the government is to use the social media to stir up some kind of kites. When they fly such kites, or what you call trial balloons, the implication is that government officials will respond. So that is what the social media has been doing.
Okay.
But nevertheless, the social media is not in competition with the mainstream media. Rather, both are complementing each other. For those who want to get authentic information, they are not quick to believe social media stories because the feeling is that anybody can post anything. So when you're looking for credibility, they will say they will find it more in the mainstream media. The reason is that mainstream media are subject to government regulations. And on the basis of those regulations, the managers of such media institutions will not want to draw the eye of the government. On the basis of that, there is this carefulness in publishing information. But in the social media, even when it has not been verified, people are quick to publish. But this development has given birth to what we call fact-checking, where if a story goes viral and you want to check the authenticity of it, people are quick to ask questions. By fact-checking such a story, you want to know the pictures or images used. Are they true? Did the incident actually happen? Where? When? What time? Because of geolocation and the advent of some powerful technologies. So if you do fact-checking, you can fact-check image, you can fact-check audio, you can fact-check pictures, videos, and all of that to establish whether a story is true. So I will not say social media is better than mainstream media or mainstream media is better than social media. They are all complementary. They are meant to serve our interest. The reason is this. If you look at what some young people post on social media, if you are not discerning in consuming information, you can run amok if you hear certain things. But the mainstream media will want to be sure that that thing has happened before they go on air. So if you look at this, you will realize that in terms of breaking news, the logistic involved in packaging a news story, mainstream media may not be able to easily do that.
Yeah.
But with the social media, with your mobile phone,
yeah,
you press your Facebook live or whatever, Instagram live, that story can be relayed to the public. But if I ask your station to cover an event, the logistic of movie cameras, maybe your OB view, OB van, or the crew, is huge sums.
Yeah.
So, but with just your mobile facility, you can easily go on air and relay the same incident. So, to that level, you realize that the social media has broken the bureaucracy associated with packaging news. But as a man is writing, he can go on air.
Yeah.
He can relay it live. These are some of the advantages you will find with reference to the social media.
All right.
But all are meant to help the society have access to quick and quality information that will serve the interests of citizens.
All right, well spoken, Dr. Daniel Eharafo, the head of Mass Communication Department, University of Benin, giving us a very scholarly analysis of the Freedom of Information Act and how it can change the narratives and the dynamics about democracy, good governance. You have a responsibility to make that happen. And the law also gives you the fillip to be able to take legal action where you're being denied. Dr. Daniel, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
We invite you, oblige us as always.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.